Hello and welcome to the Blaston video podcast or something. I am your host, Robo President. This is the series where we talk about Blaston news and game theory. You get to critique my awful gameplay, and today we've got something a little bit different, something a little bit special. I am joined by a guest. I've got the one, the only, the magnanimous, and the illustrious Weso himself, the master of tethercraft, although tether is a little bit in the dumps. He is still the master of just dodging. He is here with me today. Weso, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. You got any more words to describe me? I'm keen to listen for more if you've got them.
It's going to cost you. It's it's like 30 tokens a word.
I'm broke. I gave him all the 24 or 4, I guess.
Well, maybe 24 can take out a loan. And
pro tip: if you ever want to beat that guy in a fight, just scream 2-4 over and over again. He gets really upset.
2-4. Got it. I'm gonna take that pro tip to heart.
Yeah, write it down.
Awesome. All right. Well, today we're trying something a little bit different. So instead of critiquing some of my awful gameplay, even though in post you're seeing the gameplay on screen, instead we're going to talk about Blaston weapon changes through the, and I'm going to put air quotes, and you can't see me doing them, but through the quote unquote years, the 2 years that Blaston has been alive on this good earth. We're going to go through each one of the weapons together. We're going to talk about them, and we're just going to break them down. And you're going to, some of the stuff may be surprising. Weso's actually been around a lot longer than I have in terms of Blaston.
I'm a fossil, man.
Yeah, he's a Blaston fossil. I'm an actual fossil. So, we're just gonna dive into them. We're gonna go in through them in alphabetical order, so that way we don't get lost. Because as you know, there are so many weapons. There are just too many. So we're just gonna start from the stinky shields, because I know everyone's gonna ew, Robo shields, gross. So we're gonna start with Aegis, and we're gonna work all of our way down to the Chad Wildcat, which is the last in alphabetical weapons. So that is our plan for the day. All right.
Oh.
Well, let's dive in. Let's start with our friendly 3-second shield, the Aegis. Nobody knows how to say it. I'm sure Dev will comment below with a official pronunciation in the comments. So, according to the wiki, it was version introduced in 1.0, so it is a OG weapon. Yes. It's been there from the beginning. Has a spawn cost of 3, ammo of 1, no duh. And let's talk a little bit about some of the version history. So it stayed at 100 HP from version 1.0 for the majority of its existence. And it looks like it wasn't until 1.14, which was, wow, that was a long time, wasn't it? Was that not?
1.14 that's the most recent change to it. 1.1 is the very first update that changed it. So
if you guys don't know, Robo's really bad at math. I am particularly bad at reading numbers. I have a little known. I'm
1.14.
Yeah, I totally have dyscalculia. I am not making that up. And I will totally read numbers out of place. It is a real thing. So, okay. So
not to take over here with Aegis
go ahead.
Shield,
shoot for it. Go ahead.
So this is kind of a story. When all of the cool people back then played, you all think that Aegis Shield now is some godsend weapon that's just the most... It sucked.
I don't think that.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. The weapon sucked. It lasts less than half of a second. As you can see, the first change, they added a whole half of a second longer to it. You click the button, it opened and it closed immediately. It has like 350 health nowadays. It had nothing back then. It couldn't do anything.
Wow.
And I'm sure that was just us being really bad back then too, but it just didn't work out at all.
You know, I remember I remember even in like the old days, even before it got like, because it did get buffed by the time I hopped on, but it was never the shield that I wanted to run with primarily before double shield got nerfed. Like I always before the double shield nerfing, like if I had to pick one, I always went to Cortex.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, back at this point too, this is what I like to call Attack of the Aliens, because we back then, if you didn't know, weapons could spawn doubles and triples and quadruplets and Cinco de Mayos of themselves, and so people would spawn in what was the Attack of the Aliens strategy, which was double purple laser. And so when you had shields that lasted half of a second, people couldn't dodge these absolute abstract 6 lasers would just end your day. It's a miracle anyone still plays, because that discouraged us all.
I remember so I first learned of the double spawning from an old Woody video, where he explained that if you held on to your one of your weapons, you could force in a spawn of the other copy of it.
Exactly what we would do.
Yep, and that's where he did a double Nova.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine double hammer ellipse nowadays. I don't like one clan.
Oh yeah. So yeah. I mean, as far as Aegis goes nowadays, I'm not of the opinion that this is a god weapon. I think it's just fine where it's at.
Interesting.
I just think it doesn't need to be nerfed. It doesn't need to be buffed. It's just
it's
definitely
fine. It's definitely better than it used to be. That's for sure.
I think
as in a spot.
I think it has a spot where exactly where it needs to be, and that's where it needs to be. It doesn't need to be any better. Doesn't need to be any worse.
That's fair enough.
That's my at least that's my assessment of it. So, all right, let's move on. So, Avalanche Nade, our poor baby.
Oh man,
the poor Avalanche Nade. So
it's been through so much.
Yes. So this was the grenade that, as everyone knows, detonates into a bunch of projectiles that turn into beam cages upon contact with a enemy player. Now I noticed here in the patch notes, so it only has 1.13 marked for the throw damage.
It's missing.
Yeah, so it's missing a lot. This was a meta weapon last patch, for sure.
Oh yeah. Crackdown, quick draw. That's 100% a given.
Yeah, this was 100%. This is where the slow hammer nade has taken over where the avalanche nade was, but this is where the it is. I mean, it's been eclipsed, but I don't know. Do you think the slow hammer nade is more powerful than avalanche nade, or was this worse?
I definitely do think slow hammer nade is more powerful. I think the avalanche has gone through these swings where it's been buffed, then taken down, then buffed and taken down, and it's only a matter of time before it hits that peak again, since hammer nade's gotten so much love. I mean, back when avalanche nade first originally came out in 1.0, hammer nade could insta-kill, which you could throw it one time and it would instantly kill the opponent. I mean, the bullets would fly out like crazy. They did like 8 damage each. So avalanche nade was kind of slept on, and so they buffed it a lot, and then it was good. And then they took it down a bit, and then they finally brought it back to life with what you mentioned in Crackdown and Quick Draw Update, where it was, beaming people to death worse than the boundary damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, the short hammer nade, the slow attachment, I do believe is better, because it's basically just a free clamp. I mean, if you just hold it out in front of you, it's a zero effort clamp. Versus avalanche nade, have to be a little bit more precise with the throw.
I would agree. I think this grenade was too far ahead of its time. It would work better in today's meta, but if it was combined with slow hammer nade today, it would be ridiculous. So yeah, it's for the best. But maybe there's a better way to work it out. I don't know, because now it's a support grenade. It really can't be used on its own. Right.
Exactly that. That's pretty much all I've got to say on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Good old the
baby spot.
I was about to say the same thing. That's Spine's hallmark, the bunker barrier.
Oh man.
The king of the shields.
I've
Well,
got some interesting stuff about this one
all
too.
right, go ahead.
So again, back to 1.0, the very first thing, you might not have even considered it, but the bunker actually used to be filled in. And what I mean by that was it was not clear. It wasn't see-through. It was all like a solid blue wall that you could shoot through, but you couldn't see through the other side. So your projectiles would just kind of come through this weird flashed thing.
What was it like that in the original trailer?
Yeah, it was, I believe.
I'll have to go back and look.
You might check, but that was one of our biggest complaints was we can't even see through it.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
But yeah.
Yeah, I remember. So yeah, because you can see right there, 1.5 punched holes in it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
And then you can see, HP increased from, so there was it got brought up from 400 to 450 and then nerfed subsequently back again.
Mm-hmm. They tried it. They gave it a try.
Yeah. So kind of an interesting thing there. And then the bunker, what is that? The bunker handle? So 15 to 25 HP. Is that
correct?
Yep.
It's like a free nade kill now.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, am I incorrect this might be my poor memory, my poor old brain, but I could have sworn. So I remember when Crackdown came out, I sat with Heritage and we were trying out the new stuff, and there was a time, like right after the update, where I was holding the bunker handle without drop blocking, and it was blocking small projectiles. Was that ever a feature, or am I just insane?
If that was a feature, I would just now be learning about it. I do not recall that ever being. I've known about many glitches, but not that one.
I might be misremembering that. Heritage, if you remember that moment, slap me in the face or something. Let me know, because I clearly remember this. I have this memory, and then like it didn't happen ever again. I was like, what happened? Did it get nerfed? Like what? Like I have no clue.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know. Anyways, so all right, Cortex shield. We're gonna get all the shields out of the way so we can get to the fun stuff. So the big boy shield. This is the shield that's been through the most, in my opinion. It's been through a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of emotions. So I guess I'll start with this one. So it kind of started out as the all general purpose shield. I think was the game logic behind it, but then.
Yep.
When double shielding became a thing, the main objective by the devs was to prevent double shielding. So then all balancing was done to prevent that. So spawn cost was increased. So, and at one point it was 6 CD, which it became pretty much untenable. I mean, nobody would pick this thing for 6 CD. I certainly would.
Or less health even.
Yeah. Now I think it's in an okay spot, but I still think that if you're serious about defense, still take Aegis. You know,
right?
This thing is still just a beginner shield.
Which kind of brings up the question: are they going for more of that low level shield and then sort of transition them to Aegis shield when they get to Overlord? It's like they haven't decided what place they want the two shields to be in. Like it used to be that the Aegis shield was sort of like your poke shield to take out nades and stuff, but now it can take out 3 Novas, a whole clamp with 350 HP. It's just like, what do you want each of them to do? Yeah,
I'm trying not to get off on too much of a tangent, but you always hear people saying like, well, not always, but there's a small contingent of people who always say like, oh, well, we need to nerf clamping or whatever. And I don't think that that's necessarily what needs to happen. I think what they need is they need something to just help their dodging that they haven't quite figured out yet.
Right.
But we can't just give them back double shields, you know? So there's like a
right.
There's like a mid, like I think like I had this suggestion a while back that was, okay, well, what if we somehow combine the shields and make it to where you can only have one, or make shields a special slot, or I don't know. Like it's kind of a weird thing, but yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever going to be a perfect answer as long as you have two, because as long as the player has the ability to take two defensive items, then you have to balance them knowing that the player could potentially cycle both of them and negate damage, because damage consistency is what you want. So if you're preventing damage consistency, then you're stalling the match.
I'm by no way means saying the double shield is better than it used to be, because it's not. But the ability to take two shields now and have a more potent attack with attachments is beginning to sort of show, because you can have these two weapons with great attachments on them become a viable combo versus, it was a huge deal to sort of sacrifice another slot for two shields way back when. Mm-hmm. But now you can just take an attachment and have like three weapons in one.
What I would be interested in seeing, if the shields don't get touched and Wildcat doesn't get touched, is if some attachment comes out for Hammer E. And if some attachment comes out for Hammer E that would make double shielding more viable, then I think potentially that could be a more viable play style.
Right. Yep.
Because then I still think you're trading a little too much damage potential, but if something came out for Hammer E that gave you that back, I don't know what, then maybe. I don't know.
The last thing that I could think of to do to try and help people out with clamps is to make bunker rotatable. So, it's got its four slots, but if you could sort of rotate it on its side, is sort of try and help with the curving around it. I get that's kind of how clamps work, but it might make them have to rethink their clamp a bit, because, if you shoot it one way, they put a shield sideways, and you might have to clamp from above. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. I think it'd be a little bit of a free lunch, though.
Yeah. No, it's simple.
Maybe an attachment to bunker, so you get a smaller bunker.
There you go. Yeah.
A smaller bunker, but you get more position options.
Or even just less health or something, yeah.
Yeah, so like maybe your bunker is like, 50% smaller, but you can put it on the sides.
Yeah.
Or something.
No, that'd be interesting. A placeable shield, so you can rotate it. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, so something like that. That might be a better idea. But yeah, so who knows? But all right, so we'll move off from Cortex Shield before all the anti-shield people come out and flog me in the comments. Okay, Frostbite. Man, do you remember when I think what was the discussion of like early 2021 when everyone was like Frostbite's overpowered? Remember that?
Yep.
They're like it's the overpower. It's the small Viper.
Yeah, it was a very well. I mean, it did a lot of damage. It was dirt cheap. I mean, this thing did how much damage when it first came out?
I think it's always been 15. Has it not? Yeah.
Maybe. So. Maybe it has. Maybe it just felt like a whole lot more back then. But another thing to sort of note, if I might be wrong on this when we get a little bit farther, but when Frostbite came out, I don't believe there was a cap on throwing weapons yet. I don't exactly remember what patch that came in. It was fairly early on, but so was Frostbite, where you used to be able to chuck your weapons as fast as humanly you were able to. The game now has a cap on how fast the velocity of the weapon throw can be, but way back when, you used to be able to like laser your gun over and get free chip damage on people. Like Super Majestic, boom, free 8 damage, free 8, free 10. Like, so maybe that was part of the reason why it was so terrifying, that you could potentially throw a snowball the speed of light.
That'd be wild. Baseball players out there throwing 100-mile-an-hour frostbites. Well, it says here, so the max throw speed was reduced from 4.8 to 4.5 earlier on.
Well, that wasn't super early. That was only 1. That was a 1.11.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That wasn't 1.1. Yeah.
So they didn't even. So it looks like it's not marked in the patch notes on the the throw cap. And I do
Yeah.
remember the HP drop, because way before attachments, snowballs would clip through projectiles and you would just get all those hit particles
Yeah.
all the way through. Like you would throw it up into somebody's wildcat fire and it would just boom, 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 and then you would hit them.
Jeez.
So, yeah. I think snowball's fine where it's at. There's not really any, like, it's fine. There's
Okay. It was capped. It was capped just a little bit before Snowball came out, but yeah, it still had its reign of terror when it first came out. It was just such an interesting weapon.
Yeah.
This was the second weapon that was ever added. You go from all these guns and plasma beams to tether, for goodness sake, and then all of a sudden they just add in like a rock. You're just throwing something. That is
a good point.
It was just so different. It was weird. We weren't used to things being chucked at our face as a viable strategy yet. But yeah.
All right. Now the hammer,
All right.
fires a veritable wall of low damage,
My
hard to
favorite.
dodge. I think hard to dodge is subjective. Just depends on your situation. So great for taking down defensives. So, yeah, looks like. So what? I mean, the hammer's been around from day one.
1.0, day one. Yeah.
Now the patch notes say that the reload time was decreased from 1 second to 0.5 seconds back in 1.11. And
Yeah, because that was sort of the biggest complaint up until that point was you couldn't get two shots off together.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you can get two shots off together, it makes it more of a combo setup versus it didn't used to be a combo setup, which sort of hurt it. The only reason it was mostly effective was tether hammer. I mean, that was the most viable thing you could do with tether before they gave it the quick shot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But after the quick shot, I would say I never really. So after the quick shot, I started to realize the effectiveness of hammer after I started seeing you and your posts about using it as a hazard, and watching JJ use it as a combo starter in his clamps.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'll see nowadays. I mean, I know 24 likes to use it as well quite a bit. I mean, you'll shoot the sort of combo setup with the hammer. You'll throw a nade and just go in with your Raptor E. It's simple, it works.
Mm-hmm. And then even further on into quick draw, watching. So Crackdown was using it as a cheap combo starter.
Mm-hmm.
And then even further, quick draw, watching people using it as a utility device.
Yes.
So people were shooting down grenades.
Yep.
And which I had never seen until, at least commonly, never seen until quick draw for whatever reason.
No, yeah. I mean, it's gotten even better at that now. I know the third attachment that you can charge, I consistently use because it shoots them so quick in a tight formation. You can just shoot down nades with ease. I mean,
yeah.
For 3 seconds. I mean, I think it's a very good multi-function tool, which is sort of king in Blaston when something can do more than one thing.
Yeah, and like the description says, you can knock down. I mean, it's 3 seconds is a good way to chip at least half a bunker.
Yep. Yeah, it's great.
So,
I mean, I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's get on to the big brother, the king, the big kahuna, the hammer ellipse, the painter's brush of death. Been around since day one.
Just as effective as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, what is there to say that hasn't been said about the hammer E? Man, it's been in so many different metas as it's evolved. And the very first, I mean, let's dive into these changes first before we dive into the metas. So it looks like the patch notes are flipped over on this one. But so there's so I remember the reload time reduction. That was a big one.
Yeah, that was
That was supposed to be the big hammer hammer E nerf.
It didn't really make it.
Yeah, it didn't really do anything.
They just clamped slower.
Yeah, it was sort of imperceptible. The spread being tightened up slightly. Yeah. The spread being tightened up slightly though it stopped. What that stopped is it stopped back shooting. So when you would go to the back of your podium and then just try to spam.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah, so that stopped that strategy, and it made the weapon way more focused on clamping.
Right.
And then the collision damage, I didn't even realize that happened.
Well, that was like it says there 1.3. That was a really long time ago. So hammer ellipse back then, a lot of people didn't really use it. I mean, there weren't clamps. I mean, it was just all straight shots at that point, hiding them through novas. But it was a chunky pellet. Like that thing they used to like go through. It would destroy your Raptor bullets. I mean, like it would just go through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the effect it had on fields. I mean, it would just destroy it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's so my first interactions with Hammer E before I learned how to clamp were using it as a trap weapon, but not as a combo starter. So I would try to, because I hadn't learned ellipse weapons yet, and so before the spread got nerfed, I would go to the back of the podium, I would take lower CD weapons, I would fire off some shots, try to fill up the podium, and then try to get people to move into the bullets.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that got nerfed.
Which changing that up.
Yeah, which is fine because it's kind of a bummy thing to do. But it's focusing on higher skill, and obviously I don't have to do that anymore. But man, and all the meta differences. The very first meta that I ever remember with Hammer E was Viper E and Hammer E. Do you remember any others before that, or is that the first one?
You had there was Hammer E and Avalanche Nade, old Avalanche Nade, but mostly came into play with Viper E because after the Viper E, then people started working in Raptor E, and then it sort of got to where it is today with everything being thrown at you. But you're right, it was Viper E, the big one. Yeah,
and where I remember that coming from was another Woody video. And what he would do is it was not a clamp. It was kind of like it was just, he would sideswipe with a shot, one shot on one side, and then he would shoot a Viper shot on the other side. So it was just left and right, left and right.
Yep.
So very basic combo, but I mean, that was complicated back then because we didn't know any better.
Oh yeah, I mean, we would all get scared, run to the side of the hammer, he would push you to, and bam, you lost your tooth to a Viper.
Yep. So yeah,
but
the king.
But I mean, yeah, everyone's familiar with it at this point. There's not a whole lot you can say.
Oh yeah. All right, Hammer Nade, the current, if Hammer Ellipse is the JJ of weapons, then Hammer Nade is the 24 of weapons, the rising champ, coming up to steal the crown in terms of metas at the moment. Except 24 won't inevitably be nerfed. But, all right. So yeah, Hammer Nade is having its time in the sun now. But it has been mostly mid to lower mid, like way before.
Yep. I mean, it was king when the game first came out. I mean, if you look there in the patch notes, 1.1, it said rework to decrease capability to one hit an opponent. I mean, the thing you don't even consider, back when this Hammer Nade existed, it exploded in a sort of cone shape. The Hammer Nade we know now, it sort of explodes and all the bullets kind of come straight at the opponent. Well, this kind of had more of like a 180-degree effect. Like the bullets would kind of shoot off, like sort of like a real nade, it would blow up in a much bigger spread. So I mean, it was easy to hit people with, is what I'm saying. It did a lot of damage, and it was easy to hit people. It exploded like a real bomb. I mean, if you imagine throwing a nade that would explode in all directions right now, I mean, it's really hard to dodge.
Huh. Man, right now, the one hit, because I still get one hit kills all the time with at least one or two a day. Like on my 1 hour of
That's like if
gameplay.
they're trying to catch it, though, you know what I mean?
Sometimes I get, if I just throw a hammer nade and I'll catch them in the back, because sometimes they'll get distracted if I put counter pressure on them. And I'll pop one on their back. But
yeah, I mean, this thing was crazy easy to one hit people with. I mean,
yeah, I might even, if I had the patience for it, I might even get a one hit kill montage going.
But sort of going back to what I said earlier, this is when you could throw it the speed of light. So you could wait till it was right about to blow up, boom, chuck it as fast as you could, MLB style, boom, right in their face.
Oh, that sounds diabolical.
The same thing with the Nova nade back then. Can you imagine someone chucking a Nova nade at your face, like right before it blows up, but just like a baseball? It was not fun.
Oh, that's awful. Oh, wow. When did Hammer Nade... did I miss that? When did Hammer Nade have a spawn cost of 6? When did this happen?
Hammer nade had a spawn cost of 6. And I do recall this.
That's miserable.
I never really used it at that point, because like you said, it was a pretty mid-tier item compared to Avalanche and stuff. But yeah, 6 seconds. You know, the same as a hammer nade, or a hammer ellipse rather. No way.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
We don't like it when people mess with our spawn changes.
Yeah, spawn cost, that's your fastest way to either
completely
make or break a
wreck
weapon by far.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Let's see. Lance Vance, the last dance for Lance Vance. All right.
I'll say you missed an item. Robo, you're already tapping out.
What did I miss?
Hurricane.
Because everyone always misses Hurricane.
Yeah, that's true. Not anymore. Pregnant Hurricane is the move.
Oh no, not the Pregnant Hurricane. You know, Pregnant Hurricane early on in this update was like the move, and now I think everyone already forgot about it.
I don't understand why. I mean, I'm not one to have been playing a whole lot to see why, but it's death from above.
It's because it's consistent damage, but it's not a lot of damage. So it's just kind of like,
I don't know about you, but when I'm playing somebody, sometimes it comes down to 5 damage.
Yeah. I don't know, because I think
it's like the Vector, 3 taps.
What people started to realize, it was like, okay, would you spend the extra second if you're making a build and you have an aerial? Would you spend the extra second on a hammer nade, or if you spend the extra second on a hurricane, or like save that extra second for the hurricane rather? Because the hammer nade is going to give you higher pressure and higher damage.
Or when I take both, they're 2 different purposes.
You could.
That's what I would do, at least. I would take them both.
Usually, so when I am factoring in whether or not I'm going to take a hurricane or a hammer nade, and let's say I can only, for whatever build I'm making, I'm only going to take one aerial.
Mm-hmm.
If the opponent I'm fighting, if they are heavily countering my aerials, I'm going to take the hurricane. Because the hurricane's harder to counter. But if they're not really countering my aerials a lot, then I'll take the hammer nade instead.
That's fair. No, it's completely reasonable. I mean, Raptor is not a good friend with Hurricane. That's sort of your biggest battle.
Yeah. But all right, so Hurricane's had a up and down, like a lot of up and downs too. It went from being hardcore meta. It went from being like meh to hardcore meta back to meh again, and now it's like pretty
good spot. I think it's a good spot. Yeah,
it's pretty strong. Yeah, it's in a good spot. Started out.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
I can remember. I think this was probably about the time of Crackdown when you could shoot them one after another, like extremely, extremely fast, sort of,
Oh yeah.
and people would just shoot them straight with Raptor E.
Mm-hmm. No, people would use them with tether.
Well, that too. I mean, people put anything fast with tether.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was 1.13 is that let me see real quick. Is that quick draw? Is that Let me look. Hold on. Yeah, that is
Yes,
quick
it
draw.
is.
Okay.
Quick draw.
Yeah, this is where things went sour for our boy, the Hurricane. Yeah, so things were nice and happy and chipper, and then just right
I think
downhill.
I think gravity increase is a good thing. I may be alone on that, but I think it's a great way to interrupt somebody who's trying to clamp me.
Oh, potentially. Yeah, I mean, now you have that ability to add that attachment.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it should be. It shouldn't. It makes it so much more usable for some people who want it like that. That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
attachments they're great like that. For all their flaws, they have brought a lot of good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I think Hurricane's in a good spot overall. It's still very versatile, and it does its job as an aerial weapon as it should be. So, yeah.
All right, I know you're eager to get onto the Lance.
Yes, I am. Ho has been watching eagerly. He wants to see me talk about
All right.
yeah, lasers, and so is Shermie. Shermie is itching. He's
I'm
been
sure
waiting.
Yelkel will approve.
Yeah.
Oh, he loves his lasers and super majestics.
Yeah, well, Yelko maybe he might have been a little bit excited, but I know I think Bear Blast's a little bit more of a Lance guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's too busy trying to figure out another profile to make up. Anyways, so we've got the Lance. So generates a steady damage over time ion beam, which you can use to box in your opponent. Lance has always been kind of funny because for whatever reason, it's been like the scapegoat for we hate, whenever you see new players come into Discord all the time. This is like the most repeated ritual. New players hate the lasers. I don't know why. I mean, I know why.
I can tell you why.
Because they can't dodge. But
yep.
But they're really not that hard to counter.
Nah.
But yeah,
I think Lance R, which we'll get to in a bit. I mean, it's just leagues ahead of this one.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Lance R is the better choice for sure. And I think for whatever reason, so let me look at this because I'm trying to figure out what it was that before this most recent update, Blue Lance was a little more viable, but now I don't think Blue Lance is very good other than the damage attachment. Damage attachment's dirty. That's a dirty attachment. But because it's kind of like a little mini sniper. If you pin someone just right and then you set up one, you can get a sneaky little 17 damage in there.
But, yeah, well, if you look at the patch notes, you see that it was reduced from 30 seconds to 25, or 30 damage to 25. I mean, 30 damage per second on original laser.
30 damage per second?
It was a Viper. I mean, it was...
That's nutty.
It was crazy. And now imagine that with Lance Repeat, because it was also 30. Well, but you had double.
25 damage per second is still too high.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a lot. And then you can see it got taken down from 25 to 20. I mean, then they changed their little zap thing up. I don't know the official term on it, but zaps do not do the same as they used to.
So now it's 20 damage per second?
Yes.
Why does that for some reason the 20 damage per second doesn't feel what's the damage
20
attachment?
Damage a second?
What's the damage attachments damage per second? Do you know?
I do not know off the top of my head. I know it's really weird because you see that it does 20 a second, it never feels like it hits for that much. And the thing is, too, if you get zapped for, let's say, half a second, it will show 20 damage on your health bar, but then when you're not getting zapped, it will replenish the other 10.
Yeah.
Like, your health will go back and forth. It's weird, so it doesn't feel like... It's hard to gauge how much you're actually hitting them for sometimes.
Well, all I have to do is get some... I just have to get a tiny piece of information wrong, and then Sloyd will comment and be like, I got you now, Robo.
Actually, tether is 7 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, well, it's actually... the quotient is it's per Detective Sloyd. I'm just kidding, Sloyd. So, all right. So, yeah, that is Lance. Let's talk about Lance Nade.
Oh, no. Poor Lance Nade.
What do you got to say about Lance Nade? Sounds like you got something.
Lance Nade, it's never been good. It has never found its way into a meta, ever. Not a single time. And part of that is because, hello? Why does it cost so much? Why does it cost the same as Lance? That does not click in my mind. One beam costs the same as 2 beams for potentially a worse spot.
I guess that's true. That's a good point. What do you think it should cost?
I think they can keep the cost the same if they bump up the time it's present a lot.
Okay.
If they leave it at 4 seconds, I want them to give it at least 1.5 or 2 times more amount of time being there, because it lasts like the exact same as a normal laser. It is the same as Lance in all ways, except it's worse in all ways.
I can agree with this. And in fact, I think this is a good way. The Lance Nade, I think, is the secret kryptonite if it was tweaked just slightly to help out against spidery ground dodgers.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you just tweak it slightly, you know. I've never gotten it to work because I'm not good enough, but I've gotten some pretty good licks in, and I know it could work if a good Lance Nade was placed and it was tweaked slightly against somebody that likes to play on the floor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we won't mention names though. But the other thing that I've suggested in the past, besides just making it last longer, is to actually make it thicker. Like, I know you can't have it split into 2 beams, but why can't the beam be bigger?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, why can't the beam be like twice as big?
That's true. That's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah, I lean more towards your idea of increasing the beam time. I think that's a good idea.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what I would prefer anyways. It's just they haven't, like, what? They have never actually tried to make it good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can need some love, because it's definitely when Majestic Nade is, when I look at grenades and I always take Majestic Nade over this, I think that's a bad sign.
Yeah, I mean, Majestic Nade is actually somewhat useful, and it's cheaper.
Yeah. When Majestic Nade, which is in concept, it's like when Majestic Nade is more useful, you've got a problem. You gotta figure yourself out.
It's beyond me. I mean, if you even look at the changelog, why? I mean, do they even realize it's in the game still?
Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah, I agree. It needs something. I'm with you on that. Okay. Last Lance. Lance R.
Big boy Lance.
Big boy. The triple Lance itself.
Here's the fun fact of the day before we dive into this. This bad boy used to cost 11 CD.
That is absolutely bonkers to me. That is just blows my mind. That this had more CD than Super Majestic.
It was there.
Nutty.
If you go to the changelog and look at 1.1, can you tell that we were not having it with Lance R back then?
That is nuts.
Damage went down. Spawn cost went from 9 to 11. The time active was shrunk. Like, it got destroyed.
Golly. So, I think it seems to me that Lansar and Super Majestic, at least I think in the game, in the dev's mind, is they're supposed to fit into a category of like a super weapon. I would assume, right? Like that's the idea,
Right.
and it makes sense. But it's interesting that like the meta weapons, as far as like what people tend to use, are not
super weapons.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just interesting that.
But I think the devs have caught on to that. I mean, if you truly look, they have not added any, like what you're talking about, super weapons. They have not added something high CD since like 1.0. It just hasn't happened.
I think the way to make a super weapon going forward, so the Luma is a good start, where a two-handed weapon that requires like technical usage to pull off.
Right.
So
I would agree.
You lower the CD, so it's not like a complete, doesn't completely
11 seconds.
Yeah, doesn't make your spawn whack.
Our spawn pool was like 22 at that point too.
Yeah, and then so you had to take both your hands off. You can't. You have to take both hands to use the weapon, and then maybe there's some kind of mechanic where you got to use both hands to use it, and then where it's like skill based, like because the drawing the bow just works. That's a good mechanic because you got to learn it. So, and then what people start to figure out, especially with the Luma, we'll get to that in a second, is like they try to juggle it. They try to do all kinds of things to make like to try to pick up the gap on using another weapon at the same time. So yeah, that's where that skill gap comes in. When you have a one-handed super weapon, you got to balance it elsewhere, and that comes into the spawn cost, and it just kinda this.
Absolutely. That's the only way they're going to be able to make it work.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Luma.
Yes. Speaking of our boy, the Luma boy. No patch notes. It is new. It is here. It's now. It's wow.
It is the shiny new toy.
Yes, it is the new kid on the block. Everyone loves it. I don't think there's anybody. I personally don't see a reason in using the stock version if you get good with curved. Because curved does what stock does, just better.
Yep.
So
yeah. For the same price. Yep.
Yeah, for the same price. So yeah, just use that. My first initial impression with stock, I couldn't hit anybody like at all.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't hit Jack, and then
it's so fast too.
Yeah, I think I got better at it. At least once I moved to the cursed Luma 3.
No.
And then increased, my projectile count. And then I was able to tag people with it. But I like using. It's more satisfying using curved Luma, for sure. Because that actually feels like you deserve that hit.
It does. It was really. I mean, maybe just my brain after using Viper Ellipse and Hammer Ellipse for all this time, but its curve it's a totally different muscle memory. It's different. Mm-hmm. It's good. It's a way of curving it, but fresh. It's not something you're going to pick up and use as easy as the other Ellipse weapons.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I think as far as balance goes with this, once they fix the collision on Bounce Luma, this will probably be one of the better balanced weapons. All the attachments are pretty decent. I guess stock is okay if you can hit people with it. I would just use curve though.
I mean, I can't talk bad on stock because I think it's better than normal Viper by a long shot.
Oh yeah.
For cheaper.
Yeah.
It's by no means bad.
Oh yeah. No, I can agree with that. Yeah, it's faster projectile.
Like you said, it's just better to use the Ellipse. I mean, that's just how the game works. It's better to use Ellipse if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, faster projectile for 10 less damage with a lower spawn cost and faster follow-up shots. There's no reason not to use it. 100%.
Oh no, we've hit the M's.
All right. Majestic. Yeah. Oh no, not the Majestic. Not the sad Majestic.
Best weapon in Blaston history.
Oh no. Okay, man. Majestic. This has had at one point. This was a meta weapon. It was a dark time in Blaston history. During Majestic trapping, when you could use this with Super Majestic and trap people by filling up the entire podium. And people did this repeatedly over and over and over. Do you remember that?
You thought that was bad. You should have seen double Super Majestic.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah. And I feel like so after Majestic trapping, there was a knee-jerk reaction that nerfed Majestic. And now ever since, it's been completely...
They're too scared. They're too scared to touch it. And I can't blame them. It's very hard to balance these Majestics and lasers. Either too strong or just not good enough. It's been very hard for them to find a balance.
Yeah, I think we had some good suggestions for how to fix Majestic. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I don't remember what they were. But yeah, where it's at right now, it's sad. I mean, yeah, it's just not good. I would say that at its current iteration, 6 spawn cost for the size of those projectiles, yeah, it's just not, I don't know what else there is to say. It makes me sad. I think Ho
Majestic Nade.
Yeah, Ho is he's the only one who uses it. The only man.
Congrats. Brave soul.
Yeah. He's also the only man in Blaston I've ever seen naked. That's besides the point.
What?
All right. Majestic Nade. Okay. So
clean transition.
All right. So the actual good Majestic, the best Majestic in Blaston. So this grenade penetrates, or not, oh goodness, no, I should not say that word after I just said what I said about ho. This grenade generates a beam cage to force your enemies to reposition. So pull the trigger and start the countdown. So, yeah, there hasn't been a lot done to this other than a beam cage increase.
Yeah. And going further, I believe the patch notes are wrong too. It used to be humongous. Like, the patch notes were wrong, and they acknowledged that they were wrong at the time, but it was huge. It was huge. It was like a whole Super Majestic at one point.
Yeah. Well, and then also, too, so this is something we haven't talked about so far, but all the nades had a toss damage reduction.
Yep.
And there was a time where you could do a really cheap and cheesy loadout. It was the stupidest thing you could do, where since grenades did 6 damage each on toss, you could just throw them and clobber your opponent. And if you were good enough at dodging, and maybe you packed a shield with you or something, I don't know, you could just clobber your opponent to death like a caveman with sticks.
To add on to that, the shields also had a lot of throw damage, so people were throwing them too.
Yeah. So there were certain rounds where you could just toss damage your opponent to death, and that all got nerfed out the window.
God bless Fathead. I think I drove him away with that at one point. Him and his super loud breathing. I don't know. Interesting time.
So, Majestic Nade, I think right now, outside, this is my opinion, I think it's like a distant second to Slow Hammer Nade in terms of, like, if I had to pick between, so when I look at nades in my loadout, my first pick is usually Hammer Nade if I'm going to take a nade. But then if I'm not going to take Hammer Nade for any reason, then I'm going to take this one.
Interesting.
Yeah, just kind of where I'm at with it, because this nade is cheap and it can be thrown low, and it's really good for area denial. I don't try to use this for damage. If I get damage with it, that's great. I'm usually trying to use it to block off parts of the podium, and then so I can get damage with something else. And it's really good for ground dodgers, because if you can force someone down low with something else to where they can't catch the grenade. And then you toss the grenade up high, and then it pops down, and then it's extra pressure on top to add to the fire of having them forced on the ground, where you can try to shoot them with something else. So, yeah, it's decent. And I think also too, JC12 uses this grenade pretty prolifically. He uses it purely as distraction. He tries to get you to catch it, and then he'll swing around and smack you with a Viper, because he knows that you think that the grenade is not a threat to you. So I think it's totally underrated. But that's because the other grenades are totally bad. So it's kind of in a weird spot.
I love how ground dodgers are becoming the new mouth breathers. The ground dweller.
Yeah, they are. All those spidery ground dodgers crawling around the ground. There's more of them. I'm seeing more and more of them in queue. I don't know how they.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on Majestic Nade. I don't like it. I don't like it very much.
Yeah,
we're totally different there. I would pick any other nade except Lance Nade, because that nade is terrible. But I would pick anything else, truly.
Yeah, I just, well, because it's, I don't know, it's cheap.
I don't know. I get it. It's cheap. Sometimes that's good enough. I mean, it's all playstyle dependent, really.
Yeah. All right. Now
the Dr. Oolong's favorite weapon.
Yeah, here comes the Oolong emojis. Nova. Big boy. Nova balls. All right. So, Nova's had a pretty interesting life, especially recently with the attachments, which we'll probably get into here in a second. You could probably speak to Nova because it's been around since day one, and it looks like
I think it was meta. It was meta.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back in my day, because I'm super old and whatever. But this is what we used to use. We would use Viper, not Viper Ellipse because we all sucked, but we would use Viper and Nova. We would shoot the Novas and we'd shoot the Viper through them. That was good enough to win back then.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, even if you went back a long way, going back to the legend Woody again, he's got videos up all the way back from like October or whatever. He was the first real opponent I ever faced, and that's what we would do. We would trade Nova and Viper shots, and that's how, if anybody remembers Mimixis back in the day, the warrior of the time, that's how he would stomp everyone down. You know, we'd hide our stuff through Novas, which is just a laughable, silly thing at this point, but that's what would work.
That's nuts. That's absolutely bonkers to me that that's like the beginning.
I know, that's what I mean. It's laughable what used to be devastating back then.
It's like, oh, here it comes. Oh, no. Like that. There it is. Like
it was, and then I remember it was like breathtaking. Like I brought Hammer once and just popped one of the Novas, and Woody just gasped. He's like, "Huh? What? You can break them?"
Man,
truly a different time.
Wild. And so hit points decreased from 60 to 55, and then collision decreased from 55 to 45. So it used to have 40 damage. What the heck?
Oh yeah, that was part of the reason it was meta too. Because if you didn't break them and you didn't die to the Vipers through them, you would bump them and just die immediately.
40 damage. That's almost 50. That's almost half your health.
That's what. Yeah.
What the heck?
It was, interesting to say the least.
Yeah, so damage reduced from 40 to 30. So I always remember it as 30. So that's where I showed up. And collision, so collision got increased from 45 to 55. And then reload time was reduced. And then the HP got brought back up to 65.
I think the HP and the reload are the big things that sort of make it that defensive, flexible tool that people use it a lot now for, where they'll kind of sit in the back and just use it as a defense weapon.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, now we have the attachments. We have the big elephant in the room.
Whole different game. Yeah.
Yeah, which being the HP Nova. I mean, how do you feel about HP Nova?
It's really annoying. I don't think it's busted. I think it's just the kind of thing in queue that makes me have to bring Vandal because I don't want to deal with it. It's just annoying. I don't think it's broken. I don't think we'll see it in VRML finals. I don't think anybody in the top 5 will use it. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really don't think it's that good. It's just annoying.
Yeah, so I just think it's got a really low skill gap for the kind of like the kind of
lasers.
results.
It's super majestic in lasers.
But the kind of results you can get out of it, and the kind of like the value that you put into it, I think is a little wonky, you know? So
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and then obviously too, like Speed Nova is just absolutely whack. Like that needs
point. I don't get it.
Yeah, that attachment needs some love. And Bounce Nova's fine, I guess. It doesn't really bother me because you can just
all the homies hate bouncing things, but it's really not that bad.
Yeah, Bounce Nova doesn't really bother me. The ones that get me the most are Bounce Luma and Bounce Viper.
Yeah.
And Bounce Viper really isn't that bad. We'll get to this probably later.
Yeah.
You just have to work to actively cancel them. The problem.
Yep, exactly.
The problem arises when your opponent is working in concert to try to get as many things that you have to actively cancel at one time. So like I just had a match with Bear Blast where he had the like most skeeviest loadout of all time, where he has like he was using Bounce Viper. So normally I try to prioritize and kill the Bounce Vipers, which is fine. That's how I beat Bounce Vipers. Like I don't really have a problem with it. But then he also has Bounce Novas. So then I also have to take care of the Bounce Novas. Then he also has Swarms. So I have to watch out for, kill the Swarms. But then, he has all these little things, and then he'll use them in concert. And then if I didn't catch every little thing, then he catches me in the back with something else. So kind of a skeevy little loadout. And normally it wouldn't be a problem with someone of his skill level and my skill level. It'll net him a win or two.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on that more when we.
Yeah. Interesting loadout. So Nova Helix, the
another good one.
Yeah, controversial when this came out. Oh my goodness.
Bunch of losers who said you should get. Yeah. I'm just saying this now. All of you who thought to nerf is saying, wrong. Worst decision.
This actually was also one of the weapons that inspired me to double shield, because I realized real fast that shields just canceled it, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's not so bad. You just wipe them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was this, and it was the old Hammer E Viper combos that I was like, oh yeah, just shield it. Okay, you're good. It was my favorite thing, watching people roll into this with Q, thinking that this would carry them, and then I would just shield away their Nova Helix, and then they would just
look on their face.
Yeah, they would just crumble. They would just be like, oh no. My overpowered weapon, I thought it would carry me. No.
It's always those people who are always just spamming everything, too.
Yeah.
As soon as the weapon spawns, it's like up in your face. Like, why is my one weapon not killing you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Oolong and I had a discussion about this, that we think that old Nova Helix, as it was when it first came out, would actually be okay now.
What? Almost like I said that.
Yeah. like nowadays, like I think, if it went back to the 2 with the higher, harder to kill balls. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we had just all suckered up and learned to dodge, it would have been fine.
Yeah. Maybe an attachment. Maybe that can be an attachment or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested to see what attachment they do bring.
Yeah, because it needs something. Because this was supposed to be, in terms of like what the role this filled was, like, okay, you take Nova, you trade offense, or you trade defense for more trapping was the point. It was like, oh, you get more trapping, but you just get less defense. Because the trapping is the technicality of trying to dodge these These flying fushigi balls.
It's just bizarre. They just spiral around. I don't know. They're just the technology we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
Again, another weapon ahead of its time.
Yeah, definitely ahead of its time. Nova Hurricane. This gun makes me sad. And the reason why
doesn't it?
Yeah, because I love this gun in Quick Draw because it was so versatile. And now it's just kind of
plastic.
Yeah, it just
something shows like potential. Just throwing back into the dumpster.
This was such a great grenade killer. Because I mean, you could kill a grenade with it, and you could still get the benefit of maybe hitting someone. Maybe.
Now, if you look at the patch notes, it'll even just tears will stream because you'll see it originally had 60 hit points.
Oh,
it's got like 25 now.
Oh, so that was like the old. So it used to have as much hit points as an actual Nova.
Oh, it was
that's a little much,
big.
I think.
It's pretty big too.
Yeah. So I can see that I mean, yeah, I think the problem with it is not necessarily that because it shouldn't have as much hit points as a Nova, like a proper Nova.
Oh no.
But
then it's just
I think the gravity is the problem because I can't set up anything anymore with it. I can't set up anything and I can't defend against aerials because that's where Nova sucks. Nova sucks that you can't kill aerials with Nova really well. I mean, you can, but you sacrifice a whole Nova for it, so it's kind of like,
it's not worth it.
Yeah,
right.
I just spent a whole Nova ball to shoot your grenade, so it's kind of dumb.
Zigzag.
But with Nova Hurricane, I can shoot down a grenade, and potentially, depending on where that grenade was thrown, I can still get use out of that Hurricane ball. And if I don't, then at the very least, the cooldown time is still pretty short, so it's not like I'm spending as much CD relatively to make that trade. But now, just with like just whatever they did with the gravity difference is just not. I don't know. It just doesn't.
It doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it for you anymore.
Needs some love. Needs some loving.
All right.
Nova Nade. The blasted killer. the nade that sent blasted packing, only because it was nerfed.
His neck snapper build. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not even. What's interesting is it's not even in the patch notes. But what isn't discussed, and what we did discuss in the iceberg, was all the grenades got given. What was it? 25 HP on their
for drop blocking.
Drop blocking, but then the Nova Nade just had 15. Making the Nova Nade almost useless at that time. This was about a year ago.
On the drop block credit. Oh man.
Yeah, and that resulted in the infamous update exit. It was part of the reason that resulted in the update exit. The blasted update exit.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah. I think this grenade was okay previously. Now, as of the what update are we in again? We're in
1.16. We're in Reloaded.
Reloaded, yeah. So in Blaston Reloaded Revolutions, we now that it moves more quickly, I don't think it's as good. It's definitely
really.
I think it's a support nade. I think this has to be used in conjunction with something. I don't think it's something you can really use it on its own.
It's too expensive for me to use it on its own.
Yeah, like
that's the biggest drawback. It's so expensive.
I usually use it with another nade, or another aerial.
Yeah. I don't think it's the worst, but it's certainly not good.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's too expensive.
Yeah, especially comparing that to something like Hammer and Aid, which is just worlds above it.
Agreed. All right, here we go. Here's your baby.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. This is what the people have been waiting for. the one, the only, the Quicksilver.
Oh, if you thought Nova Hurricane was a sad story, this is they better fix this and glow up. They really better. Like, if there's not attachments on this thing, which is probably the only way they can save it, like realistically at least, but when this thing first came out, I want you all to imagine holding on to tether, your hands, it spawns in the back, and it just snaps. And then you look up and see you lost 20 HP for it. 20. It had a break damage of 20 damage. Like, hello? 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 Why is that okay to lose that much health on the cord snapping because your hand moved on its own? Not to mention, it also, when it first released, it was slow. It didn't boost things very much, but you can see they had to increase it by 10% to try and make it better. The chain was super short. It's really long now. I mean, it was really short. Like, your arms were like a dinosaur, a T-Rex straight up trying to hold this thing. And then it would just break, and then you would die. It was a sad story. So they increased the chain a whole lot. They increased the speed multiple times. But the biggest problem with this thing when it first originally was in its prime, it would make the bullets teleport, per se. Like, we all have that. We've all talked about it many times, the boost, the yada yada. If you shot this thing with hammer tether, it would appear practically on the opponent's side. It was pretty dangerous, might I say. But it was also more dangerous the fact that you could lose, like, literally, how are you supposed to lose a fifth of your health just because the chain snapped? Oh, and by the way, when tether first came out, you could have triplets of it spawn. I've got a picture of me just holding 2 tethers at once. So, I mean, if you wanted to taunt somebody, that would have been perfect for you. But now, oh my goodness. When you have an entire form full of tethers, how am I supposed to hit anybody? What am I supposed to do with 6 tethers on my side? Or even just 2. 2 is bad enough. I mean, cool, maybe I could make it work now. I could go Wildcat tether and then go to Wildcat tether on a new one or whatever, but you're missing your loadout when everything is just tethers that do no damage, and it's sad because it doesn't no boost at all now, and it's slow and it doesn't work. Yeah. You can speak now.
Yeah, when the memes started dropping of like the supposed tether nerf, I thought they weren't actually going to do it. I thought they were just doing it to spite you.
No, they wouldn't. They would spite me, but they also would just.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that it actually happened. I get that, I hope that they fix it, because I don't think there shouldn't be any guns in, or any part of a game shouldn't be like wasteful.
That bad. Yeah. It is that bad that, like, a new player unlocks it. Sweet, guys, I grinded all day. Look what weapon I got. The Quicksilver that does nothing.
Right. Yeah, I'm of the firm belief that if you spent the time to put it in the game, that it should do something. It should do something for the player. So
it seems like a very cheap way to sort of just pass it off, this update. I do think they've got plans for it. I mean, Defer didn't even know. I mean, when I told him it did nothing, he muted me, and I had to send him video proof for him to let me back into the Discord that the tether didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, as Oolong said, all my homies use tether. All my homies use tether. All right.
What's next?
To the Raptor.
All right, this is one of the best weapons in the game.
Raptor has sort of, looking at the patch notes, it's had some minor changes.
I want you to look at 1.3. Look at that. Look at what that says.
Increase spawn time to 3.
Raptor used to cost 3.
Huh. Yeah, I get it. I guess I'm assuming that the devs were trying to make it like an alternative to the Wildcat, but I don't think it's. I mean, then there would really be no reason to use it over the Wildcat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was not forever a thing.
Yeah, and you'll see it too, but Raptor E used to be 5 seconds, a whole hammer nade.
I remember Raptor E costing more.
It was a lot.
I don't remember it costing 5, but I remember it costing 4. And we'll get to this in the Raptor E segment. But Raptor E used to be it's funny, but it used to be one of the worst weapons in the game. That, like, nobody remembers this, because I know you do. But, like, man, like, that gun has been through it. Wild. Anyways. Raptor, just interesting because it's most players when they pick it up, they're like, oh, there's a revolver, a big old dumb revolver in the swing around.
It's so much more than that. That's the thing. It's so flexible.
Right. It's a tiny defensive tool for cheap, and it also does decent. It's defense first, but it'll do damage. Like.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you look at all of its stats, all right, it's got average ammo. It does average collision, average damage. But the fact that you can use it to shoot down hurricanes, make holes in things as defense, shoot down other people's Raptors, double tap nades out of the sky. I mean, it's great. All for 2 seconds, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. I don't know. I don't know. I like it. I don't really got anything else to say. I got nothing to say about my boy. And then we've got the one that all the Chads use, the Raptor E.
Okay.
Yeah.
I use both, but they're both
I
great.
do too. No,
really.
I only say that because whenever I have Raptor in my build, JJ will always go, "Why don't you take Raptor E? Why don't you take Raptor E?"
Because Raptor's better than Raptor E. We've had this conversation before.
Like, well, I would do the 1 extra second. It just you could do curves. So why don't you do that, huh?
Don't let him say that. He uses it too. He uses both.
Right. So there was a time when Raptor E was so bad. It was like there's memes, if you go look, that I have where I'm like, I talk about like how you couldn't hit anybody with this thing. And then
no, the curve was so bad on it.
Yeah. And then they changed the Viper. They changed it to the Viper E curve, and everything changed. Everything changed. And suddenly it was a mini. It was like just a mini Viper E / snowball cannon, like overnight.
That's the thing. It's half the price. It's great. It's just simply, that's the best way to put it. It's cheap. Most weapons you look. When you're making a loadout, you're like, I need this one weapon that's going to consistently get me damage, and that will do it. You set up all of these clamps and things so that ultimately you can land the Raptor E's.
Yeah. Yeah, the Raptor E. Yeah, that's a weapon right there. I'm excited to see what attachments come out. Hopefully they're better than the attachments for the actual Raptor, though.
Yeah, those are a little sad. I mean, I was just playing Mother of Dog today, and she was using the one Raptor that like splits into 2. I'm like,
yeah, I played her too.
Why do you use that?
Yeah, although
the speed one,
I
do like the extra ammo.
Some of those attachments on the Raptor E might make more sense.
Yeah. I mean, imagine something curving at you and then it just blows up into 2. Like, no.
And then you get hit for 20. That'd be jacked up. Yeah, pregnant Raptor. Imagine that.
Please, just 8 shots with Raptor E. Oh no.
All right. Super majestic Yelkel's call to fame, because I think he's the only one who uses it right now. Yeah. One of the last remaining super weapons that it's the last of its kind. I mean,
It was big. It used to be really big. They decreased it by 10%. But the biggest change to this was, as you can see in 1.3, when they call it a new play style. How it would slow down over the center.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how the Majestic Nade goes towards the center. I mean, that's sort of what makes it what it is. And for the better or worse, that kind of defined how they want it to be. Not so much a cheesy shoot at opponent, but more as an area denial.
Yeah. No, I agree. But man, if you accidentally tap on that, because a lot of times what people will do with the Super Majestic is they wait for you to come to front to podium, and then
boom,
tap you
your instincts to go back too, and then you go with it.
Mm-hmm. And if you touch it even a little bit, it's like 20 damage. You feel it. So, yeah. I think, like I've said, the only person that the only two people that I see this using it and I use this, with air quotes, somewhat effectively, because I know Hunger Cat's going to come in and be like, I've never lost to them, so therefore they're not good. I'm like, just in the grand scheme of all Blaston players, I'm not saying I'm not saying the top 10 people. Calm down.
You mean, like, if you can go into queue and if you put Yelkel in queue, he's gonna dog on everyone. Like, yeah. It's just how it is.
I guarantee Yelkel's dogging on your average player. Okay, he's not dogging on Weso. He's not dogging on Hungry Cat. He's just dogging on most people. Anyways, so Yelkel uses it very well, and Adasme also uses it very well. And so it lends itself, because Viper users, what they'll try to do is they want to section off a part of your podium, and then they try to give themselves a smaller area to shoot you with their Vipers.
Just what you want, a smaller section to dodge those.
Yep. But I don't know. I still don't think it's that great.
Me neither. It's so expensive too. I would take purple laser in a instant.
Yeah. There's a reason why only 2 people do it, and do it well, because it's not that good.
Ooh,
Swarm. Oh man, was this? I'm trying to figure out what was worse, Nova Helix, and the controversy surrounding that, or Swarm.
If you're going by controversy, I'm sure it was Nova Helix, even though we've been through this today, was not justified. But Swarm, on the other hand, it was not nearly as bad per se, but it was, people didn't really like this thing.
Yeah, well, and here's the problem, and this is my opinion on why. Because we look at things 2020 with our current meta and setup of the tools we have today. In Quick Draw, defense was a lot less prevalent, so people didn't have access to tools to help counter Swarm. So
this was Crackdown.
Yeah. No, Quick Draw was Swarm was Quick Draw.
You sure about that?
I am 10,000% sure.
Hold on.
Well, I am 10 billion% sure. Check this out.
You could be totally right, but I just want to make sure.
Check this out. Weapon updates. Look, so Swarm is not in the list of weapon updates. And then if we go to Quick Draw, hold on. Quick Draw, new weapon, Swarm.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, that's how quick it blew over, I guess.
Yeah. So
they fixed that thing up real good. Like, well, I wouldn't say for the better, but they came for it quick.
Well, I think the reason why it was knee-jerk was because a lot of times with knee-jerk reactions to weapons is it's not necessarily just the weapon itself, but it's the environment that the weapon finds itself in. And
right.
So maybe if we look at the entire situation holistically, we'll find a better place for the weapon later on, because now the Swarm is kind of like,
I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about it.
And
I don't know.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants meh weapons. Like, that's not what we wanted. And so at first everyone's like, yeah, down with the Swarm. We got him, boys. is gone. But
That's not. Yeah, I don't know. You want another majestic? No,
Yeah.
you don't.
But I think if we take a step back and we look at it like holistically, and it's like, okay, like, but look, like, it wasn't just necessarily the swarm's fault. It was just kind of like, you didn't really have good, like, you didn't have tank novas back then. Your shields were trash. You didn't really have a good way to block everything, right, or do anything. Maybe you sucked a little bit more at dodging back then. Who knows? Like, just look.
Just dodge.
Yeah, just look at the entire thing. Maybe it could have been tweaked just a little bit, so there can be a compromise on both sides, and you can come to a better middle ground than where it ended up at. But yeah,
it was a good idea too. I mean,
Yeah.
It really was.
I think it's kind of like an interesting, because it's versatile. So it's trapping and offense, which is not a pairing that you see often. And the variable stage trigger lends itself to that, because you can kind of get off shots quickly or set it up for trapping. The devs had the right, because I know why the devs made those projectiles hard to kill, because they were thinking like, well, how can we make a trapping weapon if people can just shoot the traps?
Just wrap it, right? Exactly.
Um,
Which the multi-level setup is its best thing, but I think that's sort of what also needs is the most tweaks. I mean, if you want to have different play styles, something really needs to set apart the second stage from the third. There's no reason to use the second stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so
Because it just slows down too much. It still took like a bunch of time out of your life to hold it down, and so it just doesn't make sense to do anything but the first or the third, and mostly the first is bad too, so just the third.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I don't know. Yeah, it needs some love or something.
I think the first shot should not like stop and then blow up. I think it should just continuously move. And the second one, I feel like it should move and grow as it moves, potentially. Like if you shoot the shot and it keeps moving towards the opponent, because that second that it stops is just killer, because it just allows the opponent to then make that decision to, oh, I just moved this to the left a little bit and I dodged the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the only time I've seen, and maybe I think about this slowed out, but the only time I've seen Swarm used somewhat effectively now is like when I played Bear today, and he was trying to give me too many things to focus on countering. So
right.
He was trying to make me counter Swarm, and he was trying to make me counter Bounce Viper, and he was trying to make me counter Bounce Novas, and then also trying to get little licks of quick damage off with damage laser. So it was kind of a slower loadout, but just I think with the way he had it set up, it was just like those little Swarm. What I'm getting at is like Swarm is probably best used in concert with other things, but it's not really a combo starter anymore. And it's not really
right. It's sort of lost its place. It's a little bit in between, a little bit of a gray area.
Yeah. All right, Tundra, man. This weapon was so wild because the hype was so strong for Tundra, and then the moment it came out, everyone was like,
back to Viper Ellipse.
Yeah, everyone went just Viper boom sound the moment this weapon came out.
It's so unfortunate to me, because if we had not had Luma come and attachments come, and they had just changed this thing to where it is now, it would be dominating the game, because it is fast. It's just Luma's better.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I first started using it right after the update, I was like, wow, this thing's great. And then I was like, wow, but Luma's better. So anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it shoots fast. It does a lot of damage. I mean, it would be great. It's just too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, now what do they do? What do they do to make it?
I think what are they supposed to? They have Luma, Viper, Eden out in this thing to balance. Like, how are you going to make it its own entity? I mean, you're going to have to do something unique that it doesn't just shoot a Viper pellet that looks like an icicle. You know what I mean? They're going to have to do something different. Whether they make it sort of charge up and shoot a beam of snow or something, I don't know. But it can't stay the same as Luma, because it's just knockoff Loma.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of my suggestions was like secondary fire. Like, let's get some secondary fire on some weapons where you have to like take a second. Like, what if you had to take one of your hands and like, what if you slap something on the gun to make it change?
Yes.
Like,
Please.
change it to something else to where it turns into like a little ice beam or something.
Exactly. Just yeah. It'd be interesting to have people trying to come up with things, slapping it back and forth. You know, I'm sure we'd have people doing weird stuff like that, but something different, which is what they've shown they're interested in new concepts. They've done swarm multi-stages. They've done vision blinding. You know, it didn't used to be. You know, we used to have that floating snow cloud, but now we at least have like an on-face effect, and we've got two-handed weapons now. I mean, they're clearly showing some interest in varying it up. They just need to take one more step farther and really push it.
Yeah, I agree. Vandal, our boy.
I feel like we're finding some patterns here with these.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So the gun that does no damage.
They were on such a weird reign of guns, from tether to snowball to this thing. Wow.
Yeah, this is very. I remember when. So didn't this get stealth patched in or something? Like, there wasn't a big update or anything with Vandal. It just sort of like one day they were like, "Hey, new update, here's Vandal, here you go." And everyone's like, "Oh, new gun, really?" I remember I was like, "Dude, look at this thing," and I started shooting it, and I was like, 0 damage. Like, what? What is this even for?
Yeah, they added it in the what was called the Fierce February update, which really it was the one right after the Christmas update. So yeah, it wasn't like they did some big thing, but
oh, okay.
It had a decent set of weapon changes, but it's not like we have now. We're like hype, crackdown. But no, back then it was like, yeah, it's Fierce February, y'all.
Yeah, because this was sort of before like the big named updates.
Yeah, we got Christmas update, Mad March. All right.
Because weren't they doing? Let me go back and look at the update list. They were doing them. Let's see.
The big way of this, so they used to put them in game, like they had the news page or whatever.
Yeah. So they were sort of seasonal almost.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a
sort
boring concept to us now, but
yeah.
But it blows my mind the amount of seasons. I feel like seasons are still really fast. I mean, it's like season. I don't even want to know at this point.
Yeah.
But that's off topic. Vandal.
Yeah. I as far as like where Vandal's place is, Vandal had more of a place last update. What's funny is you'd think that Vandal would have more of a place this update, being as defensive
with Fortress
tools.
Novas and stuff, right?
Yeah, but whenever I find myself against tank Novas, and I'm shooting at them with Vandal and they don't die instantly,
it's so dumb.
Yeah, I go immediately back to something else. I don't know. I'm just like,
it's like if I'm gonna deal with it, I might as well deal with a useful weapon.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's the thing too. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm gonna have something in my loadout that does 0 damage, I want it to make sure that it kills whatever defenses I'm killing. It's killing them fast.
Yeah. And I know this is sort of a problem we've addressed multiple times, having weapons that are specifically meant to counter something. Like, it just doesn't ever seem to work. Like, it's just such a niche purpose that Vandal's got, which it shouldn't be that niche, but when you've got something that shoots that fast, the best way of having something to counter like that is the hammer. We talked about it earlier, how you've got people shooting nades down, but that's not its specific purpose. It should be something, Vandal takes no skill and doesn't bring much reward, where if you have something that, takes a little bit of skill, you spend a couple sessions learning how to shoot down nades. It's just so much better for the game, in my opinion, that you've got people actually, using weapons that are not that niche and specific.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. 100% agree. All right. Vector. Oh man, Alpha just jumped up. He went his little legs just kicked up from the bottom of the chair. He couldn't touch the ground. But yeah. So Vector has had a wild life.
Short one too, but
yeah, short and wild life. Started out with 6-round magazine and fired the shots in rapid succession. Was very much on meta in Crackdown. So when it came out in Crackdown, it was because I'm pretty sure that's when it came out was Crackdown, right?
That sounds right to me.
Hold on one second.
Crackdown, weapon, maybe.
Let me see.
Wait, no, it was not. It was World Expansion. That was 1.9. It was 2 before Crackdown.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why I associate, because I think it was the game patch that we got for Crackdown that made it so prominent. But no, it came in its World Expansion update.
Yeah, World Expansion. That's when Vector. Yeah, and it's even got links with the Vector on it. Yeah, I should know better. Yeah. So, but yeah, 6 shots, pretty rapid succession, and then I think it was by what I'm probably conflating is by the time of Crackdown it became meta.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I don't know why, but I'd have to look at the patch notes for Crackdown again, but it was definitely prominent then. It was very strong.
And I think the reason why is Golden Knight's video on Vector use helped propel that gun right into the stratosphere. And so, like, his little trick that he did where he would do the little circle pattern and then back bouncing is really what pushed that gun. And then I know everyone always talks about the Zen pigeon angle. Like, I mean, I didn't really even see the Zen pigeon angle used all that much. I
didn't either.
What people got me with is top bouncing. I would always get hit from above.
That's the biggest thing. The sides are like, okay, it kind of sucks, but it's at least still in your peripherals.
Yeah.
As soon as you look up, the game can just end your life.
Yeah, people are always bouncing vector bullets off the top. So, yeah, and didn't it used to have, what was its? So, spawn cost was 3. That's right. So it was 3 seconds. Yeah.
Wildcat moment.
Yeah, so it was 3 CD. You could literally just, it was nuts. So
it was a Wildcat replacement at that point for the vast majority of people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it did 8 damage. So if you landed 2 of those shots, it was like hitting someone with a snowball.
Which, it's not like they were. It's like the devs sat down one day. How do we make a cool weapon? Okay, we have them have these cool, skilled, in quotes, spots that they can use to shoot it. They'll bounce it off this to bounce it off this chair and then get them. But no, people just shoot them straight and then
hit you in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it became meta, and then after that it was given a big nerf. So it dropped from 8 to 6. The projectile speed was dropped from 1.5 to 1.3. Spawn cost was upped, and the HP of the weapon was dropped from 15 to 5. And then it really became it was not good for 2 whole updates. From Quick Draw and Arctic Blast, it just was not worth it.
It's in a pretty weird spot now too.
Yeah, and then Reloaded rolls around, and right at the beginning of Reloaded, it's really good. So it had what was it? It had like a 9-round magazine with a 3-round burst. It was
only 6, wasn't it? And it had 2. I thought it had a 2.
It did 1. It did 1, 2, 3. So it was like boom, boom, boom.
Why do I not remember the third one? I don't know. Yeah. I felt like there was only 6 bullets still, but you could.
Yeah, it did. It did
okay.
three 3-round salvos. It went boom, 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 and each of those did a maximum of, what was it? It was like, because I think they still did 6 damage each.
Oh whoa! No!
Yeah, it was bonkers.
I may be remembering some things wrong, but I do not recall that.
Or it was, or maybe I don't know. It might have. I think the projectile actually. I think they would catch you for 12. I think if you got hit for all three, it might have been 12 damage.
Okay, that sounds a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah. So it would catch you for 12. Yeah. No, that's right. I think it would catch you for 12. I'm trying to remember because it's not in the patch notes, and I don't have any footage, but I clearly remember this because my very first Reloaded game, I come home, I'm excited to try the update, and I get Alpha Cupcake, and I have not seen the new Vector yet, and he catches he catches me fresh in the back with 3 of those shots, and it did like 50 damage, and I was like, what the heck? And so it was super strong, and then they took one of the salvos away, so now it just does 1-2. It goes boom.
Okay,
boom.
maybe that's what it is. I just never. I was grinding attachments, but not Vector.
Right, and so now the problem with Vector is if you compare it to, like, say, Bounce Luma, there's no point in using it.
Yeah, exactly. There's way better bounce options out there, and that's the thing. It used to be the only bouncing thing. It was cool, we got curves. Now you got to bounce with it. Well, now everything and their mom can bounce.
Yeah, so because like if I compare Vector to, it's like if I do a straight comparison to Bounce Luma, so the most I can get from a full 3-shot hit is 12 damage.
But how? It can't be 12.
It's 12
unless
I think it's 12.
because it only has 2.
4,
so they just do 2 damage.
Is it 4 times 3? Is that right? Is that you?
I was thinking more like if it has 2 3-round bursts and each of them do 2 damage, then that's 12, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I remember I'm bad at math, so. Anyways, so yeah, so you can do it for 4 CD. You can do a maximum of 24 damage if you land your shots, but if you do 4 CD with Bounce Luma, and that does 14 damage on a full, if you draw your bow all the way back and you hit someone with both projectiles, it does 14. And you get 3 shots. So
yeah, and it shoots faster, and it's bigger.
It shoots faster.
It's better.
The projectiles are quicker. So 14 times 3, that's I don't know. I'm sure you know. You're in school. I'm not.
I'm on summer. Don't even. Listen, unless we're talking about how long the tether lasts, we're not talking math.
All right. Well, anyways, I don't have to be a math whiz to know that the math on Luma, it's better. It doesn't add. There's no point. Like
we know that 42 is better than, like, what did you say, 24 or something?
Yeah, something like that, right? It just doesn't add up. And then not to mention too, if I can just spend 1 more CD, then I can go to Bounce Viper. Even that is better.
And that'll do a lot more damage, assuming you hit. But even if you don't, you're gonna hit more with the things because you've distracted them and caused it.
Yeah. So Vector's in a weird spot. I think that what Vector was supposed to be is, like, if you look at the class of weapon that Vector is, so you have, like, Wildcat class, which is like your pistol, right? That's like your short,
right.
Like, that's like your primary workhorse. That's like your just straight offense. But then Raptor is like the defense version of the basic pistol, right? So they complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're
perfect. They're perfect. They exist perfectly together.
Yeah. So it's very well balanced in that terms of that class. And then so what Vector should be is Vector is like the utility version of the basic pistol, where Vector is like, okay, well, we're going to take that pistol concept and we're going to, instead of taking defense, we're going to kind of skew it to utility and give you more attack options, but less straight offense, which would make sense. Except now it's kind of, it just doesn't, the only place where that doesn't work is the CD cost. So,
right.
Controversial take. Where it's at right now, I think it's fine in terms of, like, where it's balanced with the 2-3 round bursts. Just scale
I think so too.
Yeah. Just scale it back.
It's just really high.
Yeah, scale it back 1.
Because, I mean, if you look at all of everyone's favorite weapons, you look at Wildcat, Hammer, Raptor, and Raptor E, they're all under 4. It's just like you said. It's the outlier.
Yeah, scale it back one spawn cost, and then also reduce the number of bounces, so it's not bouncing all over the place, and you get a cheap bounce.
Because that just means cheese. You're just asking for cheese if you have that many bounces. If you want it to be skill, make it that way.
Yeah, so just one bounce, like the rest of all the bounce weapons, and then then it fills that role, and then I think that's fine.
From cheese to the most uncheesy weapons. Well, I don't know. Viper's good, but Viper ellipses the chat. But that's Viper.
Right. Well, I mean, Bounce Viper can be cheesy.
Yeah, but that's Bounce Viper. That's not Viper, so we won't talk about that.
We're going to totally ignore Bounce Viper this entire video. All right, so Viper, the powerful and accurate weapon, low ammo and high rate of... not high. Low ammo and low rate of fire. So better make each shot count. Been an OG weapon since day 1. So
do you remember the 4 shots in Viper and Viper E?
I do.
That was the time.
Yes. I 100% do. And it was a very sad time for everyone when it was taken out. And I remember the dev statement on why they reduced it was because they specifically said, we don't feel like there's weapons that should one-shot people. Or I'm sorry, not one-shot people. That should kill people in one magazine.
Listen, I am not opposed to the 4 to 3 shot thing for a couple of reasons, but that is not the reason to do it.
but it's like, but you have nades that can one-shot people.
You're super majestic. All the lasers. Like, what?
Yeah.
But another thing is, I always throw out the point, if you gave Hammer E a 4th shot, would it really matter? Because the clamp, everyone would clamp and then push. But by the time you send the 4th shot, your first shot's already gone, and nothing will have followed them to actually do any damage. So the 4th shot with Viper E didn't do a whole lot, because everything else you were shooting with it was already up because of the reload time.
Yeah.
So like while it did hurt it, I don't think it like destroyed it or whatever. It made it, I mean, it's obviously still very viable along with Hammer.
Yeah, and I think people have to remember too, so even though the ammo count was reduced, the reload time was also significantly reduced. So the reload time was, and it's
right,
not like,
that's a big one.
It's not like a Hammer, we're not talking Hammer E reload time reduction. You can see that it was actually reduced almost a full second, which is pretty substantial. Like 1 second in terms of trigger pulls, when you're pulling the trigger, you're gonna feel that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you talk to people who mained Viper at that time, like Woody or whatever, I mean, they all considered it a buff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
more shots and better shots.
Yeah, so you can see there, and then the collision was increased pretty substantially, and the speed the speed was increased slightly, but then also the HP was reduced, and that was to stop. That was during that drop blocking nerf.
Yep.
So
exactly.
And
it's a very I think it serves its purpose. I mean, there's still people who use it or whatever in Overlord. I don't think it's really that worth for 5 seconds when you could, I know you were saying JJ poked at you for Raptor and Raptor E. Those are kind of separate, whereas it's an obvious upgrade for me for Viper Ellipse.
I sort of agree. I think the dichotomy between Viper and Viper E is a little more noticeable now in Reloaded than it was before. And because before, people were running really weird straight Viper builds. Like Tim had a really weird straight Viper build where he would stick the Viper barrel in your face.
Yeah.
And now the only time people are running straight Viper builds is when they want to bounce Viper you. Like, that's it. Other than that,
are you sure they're not wanting to use the delayed Viper shot? Because that's really the winner of this update.
I don't know how I feel about delayed Viper.
It's so bad. I don't understand.
I don't think I've ever seen it used successfully. Yeah,
It just doesn't make
I had a thought about delayed Viper. So, delayed Viper decreases the reload time between your shots, right? That's the point of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what if? Because here's my thought: you have a hammer, hammer in one hand, and you have delayed Viper shots in your other hand. You bum rush someone with full health. Would that decrease in reload time, would that give you enough to kill someone before you got zapped to death?
Huh?
You see what I mean? So I don't know. I'm gonna have to test this. I'm definitely gonna.
I don't
test
understand how you think you're gonna be able to. But
I'm gonna try it.
You will not be able to.
Because it'd be like, because the shots. I'm trying to remember that because it's like 1, 2, 3, right? That's about the fire rate of the delayed Viper. That's like boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
That's
maybe, but I don't know. Even if you miraculously manage to have them time right, you'd have to actually have a bum rush work, which doesn't work. So
well, but I mean, so the point.
Maybe in Q it does.
If you're sticking the barrel in the, I'm saying is if you literally run across the podium, run into your opponent, and you stick the barrel into the other guy's player model, and you go 1, 2, 3, and you have the other hammer going off, would that be enough? I don't know. I haven't unlocked.
I don't know if that's
yet.
enough. Maybe it is, but what's going to stop me from sticking my hammer or ellipse barrel into your body as you run over to me?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't unlocked the.
I mean, sure.
Yet,
if a perfect world, if I stick my hands up, wave a white flag, and have you run over, maybe it could work. But
I'll have to figure it out once I bother to unlock.
I'll let you test that. I'll let you test that one.
Yeah, because when I unlocked Bounce Viper, I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't care about anything else. So.
Fair.
Yeah.
Just have a 24 throw you on.
Yeah. Okay, Viper E, the ultimate Chad weapon, highest skill weapon in the game.
Well, not quite.
Not quite. That's right.
We all. Oh well. there's that too. It can be die. Choke on my chips and salsa, but no, Wildcat. Wildcat is the most elite weapon.
That's right. We're about to get into the real most elite weapon. Man. So yeah, Viper E, this is the gun that I think terrifies new players the most when they first see it. When they see someone using it well, other than lasers, like when they go up against a real good Viper E user for the first time, they're like, what the heck? I just got
wanted, dude.
Yeah, they feel like they're going up against FaZe Clan.
Oh my goodness, I'm just reading through these notes, not to interrupt, but Viper E7 CD.
When was this?
Oh, why? Oh, I mean, it took them till 1.11 to get it from 4 CD. You know, we had Vector come out before.
Wait, 1.11. Hold on.
That was Crackdown. Yeah, 1.11 is Crackdown. It took them till Crackdown to make this bad.
I don't remember that. That is
really
bonkers.
Yeah, because we had 4 shots and 7 CD.
7 CD? I'm about to fall out of my chair. How did Viper people live?
That was sort of like the trade-off. It was 1 less shot. It was faster, quicker reload time, and it went down to 6 CD. I mean, it was a pretty.
I don't ever want to hear anybody complain about Viper E being 3 shots again, because that is I would take I would take that trade. You
don't want your Viper more than hammer or lips?
Yeah, no, that is what the heck? What?
Yeah.
Bro.
Wonderful.
Dude.
Because that was kind of the thing that it sort of sparked a conversation, because we had Viper at 5 CD this whole time, and that was at 7. You know, they were 2 apart. It was kind of a harmony at that point. But then you dropped it down to 6, and that's when it made Viper kind of needed to be rethinked a little bit. But yeah, 7 CD, no thank you, never again.
I think I remember, but it's hard.
I know, it is. It truly is.
I've completely pushed that out of my head. I don't know. It's crazy. Wild.
But yeah, it's the ultimate skilled weapon to use. It's ultimate satisfaction when you hit it. It's got cool curves, bullet go curve, nice.
Yeah.
You don't like. Who doesn't like that thing? It's cool.
Yeah. All right, on to our final weapon, the
best weapon in Blaston.
The Wildcat. I wonder, do you think this was the first weapon that the devs ever conceptualized?
Well,
I feel like it would have been.
It could be. I might be able to find it. There was a video that they put out. It was like Blaston Keynote or whatever, where they showed a prototype of Blaston. And so I'm sure you could look there to see, but I recall at least Raptor and Viper being there.
Huh.
But it's like the most basic, simple thing there, but it just works. Wildcat is like whatever the Canucks of Blaston.
Yeah, it is the white bread of Blaston for sure. So it used to have a 5 damage and then 15 rounds, and then it was dropped to 13.
Yep, 15 rounds was sweet.
Dang.
But yeah, I mean it sort of works out because you had 15 and 5 or 13 and 6,
And then during Crackdown, that's when the big rate of fire increase happened, because it used to just be like bloop, 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 and then all of a sudden it was like
well,
bloop, bloop, bloop,
yeah,
bloop, bloop,
I mean, that's as far back as Viper E and as Wildcat. We would go, it would just be those little shots, and we'd work you into a corner, and then boom, hit you with the Viper E.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how slow Blaston's gameplay used to be. And I mean, I know we've already talked about it to death, but even just in the weapons themselves, like Wildcat, Hurricane, Raptor, all the rate of fire used to just it was like boom, 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 boom. But now it's like boom, 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 boom.
Sped up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Blaston through history. It's different. It's just the best way to describe it. I mean, it's something as simple as that. If we had the rapid fire Wildcat back then, it would be a cry session. It would be group therapy in the Discord.
It would be a cry session. Oh yeah.
But it really is in a good spot. Wildcat, I don't think it's ever left its spot. I mean, it's even more viable now. Obviously, the big talk is speed Wildcat. That's all everyone talks about right now.
Yeah, I'm not of the opinion that I know, which is funny because usually I'm one of the ones who's like, this gun freaking sucks. No, I don't think speed Wildcat is that much of a huge issue this time around.
I don't think it's an issue at all. Yeah. Honestly,
it really doesn't bother me.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I mean, it serves its purpose, but it's not like it's not like you're getting drilled by the thing. It's not that quick.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people throw out the comparison of Tether Wildcat to this one. It's just not the same.
No, it's 100% not the same as Tether Wildcat.
It's not even close. But I mean, it's good because you can use another hand. That's why it works. It works because it's a fairly cheap. It's like Raptor E, but for not curves.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Which is why they're such a perfect pair.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've gone through all of the weapons in Blaston through the quote-unquote years, the 2 years of Blaston's existence. Hopefully you've learned something about the changes in Blaston. If you already knew all this and you sat through this almost 2-hour conversation, then why'd you do that to yourself?
You deserve Blaston glow up update already.
Yeah,
that's how long it's gonna take to finish the video. It'll be that time.
That's right. So the Blaston glow up update is around the corner. So we're both very excited about that. What do I think is in it? I don't know. Cosmetics,
A new arena.
Yeah. Something
read
glowing,
off.
RGB lighting. Who knows?
Yeah, there we go. The Ozo Lounge will officially be a nightclub.
Yeah.
We'll get rid of all the young kids, and it'll be 18 plus, and Lena and Lex will be there.
Oh no. Don't tell ho ho ho.
He'll be in there. He'll be in
show
there.
up. Yeah, he's gonna show up butt naked.
We've got the dance floor.
Yeah, except you can't tell because he'll be in Ozo, but behind that headset, it's gonna.
I'm sending that to Discord. I'll take a picture of it on the camera. I better stock up on tokens.
All right. Well, this has been the Blaston podcast or something. I'm Robo President. I'm very glad to be joined by Weso. Thanks for joining me, Weso, and I'm sure we'll have more episodes in the future. Do you have any final quips or sayings that you want to leave with our wonderful audience?
Yeah, 2 things. I cannot believe I've let you say my name wrong this entire podcast.
Oh my!
You sound like that British guy. You sound like a Tess. You Weso. No, it's just Weso. No, Weso. It's not way. But yeah.
Okay. Let's. So the official pronunciation, it's Weso.
Yeah. But also, going to pronunciation, can you say meta?
Meta.
Okay, I swear you always say meta.
Well, it's like if you just want me to talk like this the whole time, okay? You just want me to talk like Tess and just have, Mom, would you like me to come to dinner the whole time? I can do it. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm sure Tess's mom will show up.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, would you like to listen to my new song? I recorded it in the dark with my Nokia 5500 cell phone camera. I hope you enjoy it. It's a very, very good song. I call it Donkey Kong Country. It's one of the best songs this side of the UK.
You should run for Prime Minister. He'd be perfect.
Okay, so Wes O. Well,
yeah.
See, when you put it all in the same word, I'm gonna read it as Weso.
Why would it? Why though? Where's the A? Where's the A come from?
I don't know.
It's just like WES Wes O.
How does Woody say it? I feel like Woody screwed me up.
I don't know how he says it.
I'm gonna blame him.
I don't know. It's either. Actually, you say Weso. I think he says Weso too, but Tessie always goes Weso. I don't know. There's the E and the A
it's
and
E. It's got to be the E.
I don't know. Well, just Weso. I don't know. But number 2 things, just dodge.
There you go. You've heard it here first, folks. Just dodge. Nothing needs a nerf. Just freaking dodge. That's all you need.
Well, yes, it's true. We went over this with Nova Helix. If you would all just manned up, we would all be fine today.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I appreciate you all. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash the like button. Go find my socials. Just go look for them. I'm not going to tell you them. Just go find them. Go find Weso's out there. They're out there somewhere. He hides them, but they're out there.
No, it's been found. I had to hide it.
But all right, everybody. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.